resident was killed later in the morning. In a separate incident, PC Armand Andrews was shot outside his Aruca home in what police believe was an attempted robbery. He remains hospitalized with serious injuries. The Commissioner of Police has extended support to his family as investigations continue. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Well, a lot has happened without anything actually happening. That is one of the interesting things coming out of this week. Welcome to Talking Point. Sean Michael Small. This is WSN, the Content Capital. Of course, the big story was all of the hullabaloo about what the U.S. Secretary of State may or may not have promised, granted, signaled, when in reality, did anything actually happen? Well, maybe you could say we took a step in a direction that would be useful if it could happen. If the dragon gets legs to dance. If we get a deal done. If we actually got an OFAC license, which we haven't actually received, even though I think in one daily newspaper there was a headline where the NGC, now it could have been that the newspaper writing the headline did not necessarily write the headline carefully enough, saying the NGC congratulated the government on OFAC, if I remember correctly. The main point is the headline somewhat indirectly implied we got an OFAC license when, as far as I'm aware, because I looked to see, wait, did something change between this morning and this afternoon, or did I see it wrong? But the Prime Minister said she's prepared to lead negotiations in Venezuela with regards to the Dragon gas deal, trying to get it back on track. Now, she said the UNC has been working to find a way to breathe life into the Dragon deal shortly after the election. I do find that, and look, I'm not gonna outright complain about any sort of false truths or whatever. It's just that is somewhat hard to believe, given the fact that, if my memory is correct, straight after the election, they were talking about Grenada, Guyana, Suriname. They weren't talking about Venezuela. Now, sometimes a government will do that. They will not mention things that are politically inconvenient at the time because they just bash the whole Dragon deal dead. So they can't just 2 months later say, right, so we're going to try and get back Dragon. And it seems as though, I mean, listen, how things unfolded now is technically better than if they immediately actually admitted we're trying to get Dragon back on the table, after bashing it directly and using it as one of several issues against the then Stuart Young regime, because he was Minister of Energy and the Dragon deal was center to his body of work in the last year or so, or last couple of years in that ministry. So I get it. I could understand that line of reasoning where they wouldn't necessarily want to admit it. Politically, it's inconvenient, how it go look, etc., etc., etc. Or it could just be that it's not actually true that the government was looking at the Dragon deal soon after the election. Now, they probably did the groundwork, the homework. They probably like, okay, what's going on with all of these possibilities? Had the ministry technocrats basically explain them everything, do due diligence, maybe double check facts and figures, etc., etc. So to say that they weren't looking to do it, I wouldn't necessarily say that. To say that they didn't, that they potentially didn't really want to have to go back to Dragon so soon after bashing it, I find that something that I need direct evidence that is not the case, because we've seen how politics are in this country. Just note, OFAC falls under the Treasury Department. So Rubio supports it, but he can't necessarily directly grant it. But there's something else with regards to Secretary Rubio, where he may have informal pull and there's an example in a different department that potentially suggests, at least on this issue, he may be a leading voice in the American cabinet, but I'll get to that in a second. Right? Now, it'd be very interesting, is the Prime Minister willing to go to Venezuela? Because the Minister of Defense in Venezuela has singled her out and has, some people might not like how our government speaks about Venezuela. They have fired back in some ways worse language. Just keep that in mind, particularly about our Prime Minister. So, but one of the things that the Prime Minister said is, well, this is the headline, TNT not seeking any regime change in Venezuela. And this is consistent with the message that the Prime Minister said. That's not what they're there for. That's not what she's hoping for. That's not what she's asking for. Based on the vocabulary selected on that part of the issue. Not necessarily based on the emotional framing, aka the seeming endless enthusiasm for taking shots at alleged Venezuelan smuggling vessels. Sorry, alleged smuggling vessels. If I say Venezuelan, then it almost sounds like the state is sanctioning them. And that's a whole other tricky legal situation. Now, she said, not seeking regime change, reportedly stopped short of saying whether she recognizes Nicolas Maduro as the country's president, that is to say, of Venezuela, right? So here's the thing. One of the issues with the Secretary of State's statements is that we are supporting the Dragon deal, but we have these issues with the Maduro government. He's still a wanted figure. A member of the State Department said, not necessarily Secretary Rubio himself. Then there's the New York Times report. There's a New York Times report that basically says, and I think you kind of still have to take it with a grain of salt, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. They are looking for regime change. They are looking to mobilize more troops. So I guess the key is, and I've been saying this from day one, look towards further mobilization as a key indicator of whether or not they're going to actually do this thing, right? Because Maduro alone is not the regime. And it seems as though Secretary Rubio is a leading voice on that. Now, that's not his department either. State departments are basically the diplomats. War departments are the war fighters, the military. And that's who has to be involved. But it seems as though, according to the reports, depending on your interpretation, he's the leading voice in getting that done. And that's one of the things that causes you to not want to put 100% faith in it, because he isn't the Secretary of War, renamed from Defense. That's why he's the Secretary of War now, once again. He is the Secretary of State. And one of the things that was pointed out is, well, traditionally, historically, he was more concerned about Cuba. That was a bigger issue personally to him. And then there's the question, why Venezuela and not Cuba? Especially since Cuba is so close to the United States, geographically speaking, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Part of at least what some American academics and intelligence people probably believe, they may or may not have proof of it, but Dr. Ellis pointed it out, Cuban intelligence in Venezuela helped support the regime. The thing is, you don't have the pretense that you would with the Venezuela situation. You could use the drug cartels to terrorism to military action. You don't have that with Cuba. This is what I think may be the case. Now, they might be smuggling out of Cuba, but to prove it might actually be harder, that it's connected to the government, that it's more than just criminal acts etc., etc. Regardless, the Dragon deal, and I said this yesterday, it's one of those things where it's now an inconvenient truth to the administration if they want the Dragon deal and they're not banking on regime change. Technically, it would be easier for us if there is a regime change. I hope people understand that, right? Assuming whoever goes in doesn't completely muck it up, which is very much a very real and somewhat probable, I don't want to say highly probable, but it is definitely probable, and I don't mean like 20% probable. It's probably 50-50 at best for you to not mess this up, to not turn Venezuela into a further destabilized mess of a nation. Because now you're taking whatever little stability they have with regards to food security, economic stability, and political stability, but not necessarily democracy, and you will further upset it under the hopes that the opposition could restabilize things quickly, which is not guaranteed, right? It's just not. The situation is too complex. So do you roll that dice? If successful, it is technically better for us. That is a very big if. On the flip side, if the Venezuelan government really believes that regime change is going to happen and they're under that threat, this Dragon deal is going to be harder to negotiate. And things would also be better for us if regime change is clearly off the table. And that New York Times report kind of potentially sunk that, because the American government is saying almost all the right things. They're not quite with regards to regime change. But at this point, it doesn't matter. Because even if they don't want to do regime change today, they could flip that switch tomorrow and start spooling up deployment orders, logistical capacities, equipment, etc. to get it done, right? It probably won't take that long because they won't need as big of a deployment as, say, what they had to do with regards to Iraq the first time, which was huge, but even the second time. So we'll have to wait and see about that with regards to this Dragon deal. Now, a couple other things just to kind of get through quickly. There's more lawsuits apparently going to be hitting the government with regards to the CPEP issue. And the Minister of Public Utilities, he's very confident in this situation. That's nice, but at the end of the day, first of all, I do wonder if the challenge, part of the issue is the legal challenges like the best angle to approach the situation? There are times when worthy causes are essentially undermined by the strategy selected by the lawyers actually undertaking the case, right? Case in point, there's a legal challenge to the state of emergencies, powers of detention. I can't remember the specifics, but basically calling it unconstitutional. I'm like, is that necessarily the best way to challenge the SOE? Because the whole point of it is to suspend certain rights. Now, funny enough, I find this very familiar, or in that the PNM kind of had similar stances with regards to lawsuits against them. I don't know how empty this confidence is, or how real it is with regards to Minister Padarath. But at the end of the day, this is one of those things where I think there's enough people thinking something was done, regardless of the legality, in a bad way. And if you win the case, it might not actually settle the issue with regards to public sentiment. It, at best, will still leave people dissatisfied. At worst, it might make people think you did something really wrong and got off on legal technicalities. And how the government is framing it does not help itself with regards to managing the expectations of the public on these issues. You don't just manage the expectations of your supporters. You have to manage the expectations of the supporters of your opponents. In fact, that's probably the first set of people that you should be considering. How does it come across to them? Because why do you want to give, in sports, you will say bulletin board material. Why do you want to give people motivation to hate you more? It's not productive. It's not good leadership. Meanwhile, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but the Chief Secretary had to come out and say, after I pointed out to the fact, hey, you're friends with the government, government's friends with the union, that is the union for WASA. When you're talking about what problems with WASA, now he's come out to say the water shortage is not due to mismanagement on WASA, please do not blame WASA. That might be true, but I did quote the Chief Secretary directly. If you have water shortfalls, well, it's not so much a quote, it's a paraphrase. We're having water problems now in the rainy season. What about the dry season? But is that somewhat of a political inconvenient statement to make at the current timing? I'm not entirely sure. Now, Marvin Gonzalez is about to say, well, this is all their mismanagement because he was doing things to improve the water situation in Tobago. Now, I don't necessarily know, I guess it's implied that they are not doing things with regard to the water supply in Tobago. He didn't necessarily spell that out, so it's an incomplete statement at best, right? How is it exactly that they are mismanaging the situation if that's what you want to claim it to be? That said, I do find that the Chief Secretary kind of needed as well to explain his position further. If it's not WASA's fault, if it's just low shortfall, let me just double check this here. A combination of reduced shortfall and operational challenges within the Water and Sewage Authority. Okay, what are those challenges? If you can't explain that, that's just a phrase, open-ended, means everything, anything, and nothing all at the same time. And it doesn't help substantiate the claim that it's not WASA's fault when you say, well, there's operational challenges. Why? Because of the leadership situation, the union situation, because we already have a certain amount of perception that WASA is not being run properly regardless. So then it's not mismanagement of WASA. You're not necessarily helping the situation there, and you're not necessarily helping WASA. So maybe you had a Freudian slip, and then you were told, hey, don't upset the apple cart right now. But if that's the case, you should have thought about that long before. Or perhaps you were poking the bear purposefully, and now you're trying to walk it back. But I do wonder, once again, why is it that politicians don't think about the long-term implications of what they say? Because far too often, listen, it happens to me, but I don't think it happens to me quite as often as it happens to people who are supposed to be leading this country. They say X, and then a couple months later, all of a sudden, the tune changed, just look at Dragon. And now they have to figure out how to justify changing the tune because of how they crafted the first position. It seems so disingenuous when they have to potentially try to shift gears. In part because that's what we're accustomed to. Not just the switching of the gears, but that it being actually in bad faith. You want to say you're better than the other guy, the guy before you, you have to try in all aspects to be better than the previous guy. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will welcome ASPLE, and I will get into something that I've started off speaking of this week. We'll get his thoughts. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. He'll tell me if I'm wrong. Stay tuned.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back to Talking About in the WSND Content Capital. Now, of course, I am joined by one Ashraf Ali, retired police inspector.
Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. Well, they still call you ASP. You know, it's just one of those things, right?
It sometimes.
That's the rank that you'll be remembered by.
Well, sometimes in the organization you get remembered for good or bad. It all depends. So
I think the callers remember you.
So I am appreciative of what they remember, what they acknowledge me as.
There you go. I mean, to be fair, you were doing the work.
Fair enough.
You were doing the work. All right, let's go now because we have to get into today's daily review. And the main story, and I wanted to have Ashraf here to do, I guess you could say, a follow-up, because it came out in the news this morning, I believe it was, that the Minister of Homeland Security, he had a response to a police shooting. Now, I haven't necessarily looked into the shooting. I haven't necessarily looked to see if it was justified, if it was not justified. And when I say that, not that we would know for sure if it was not justified, but if there was any issues that the public might have, any questions, anything that might be brought up due to a lack of transparency. No, the initial thing about this is the fact that the minister, he had a very interesting comment given his position, as Ashraf would say. This is the end result, you know, the shooting of a father and son when people in society can't behave, which is something that is literally not necessarily incorrect, but, well, Ashraf, I'll let you articulate it.
So when you listen to the comment, it's the truth. It's something he spoke from his heart.
Right, just generally speaking.
Generally speaking.
Yes.
And I want to say this clearly. The current Minister of Homeland Security, Mr. Alexander, is not the first person to make statements along this line.
Yes.
We have former prime ministers, former ministers, Minister of National Security, we have former commissioners and other persons who said along this line, if if criminal elements don't want to listen, they will feel, or they see the consequence along those lines. I mean, he didn't say anything different. The context is not different. But everybody seems to target him and say, hey, he's saying this. But I think he's in this position now as a minister of national, minister with a portfolio of that nature, and a former police officer. He would be more appreciative of the comment and how we structure that comment. And I'm simply saying this, he's not wrong. But people are going to use it from a political standpoint. The reality is, not every every police-involved shooting, there are casualties in it, right? You listen to one report, and one of the family members said that the son-in-law was not involved in anything. Her grandson was the ones involved in any activities.
Right.
Possibility exists that I don't know the whole facts in it, and I'm just speculating based on what the information is, that the grandson, the son-in-law, was just a casualty because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, because he lives there, right?
Yes.
No, the police would not have known who, based on the reports that I have, that who was actually shooting at them. All they knew that they came under fire. The commissioner did in fact state that if anybody challenge the police officers and place them under gunfire, then we will return.
Yes.
And I support that 100%. What we need to know now is the other aspect of it. While I support that statement, and I support it because I am still a police officer, I have been a police officer a number of years.
Right, technically you're still, you're not retired yet.
Yeah,
sorry.
But I am
my mistake.
But I am appreciative of what we go through. You don't have that time to determine who is shooting or not shooting. You respond based on the situation. What is critical now is the conversation that keeps eluding us, and we keep pushing it out, the body cameras.
Yes. Because this is the problem. If a police officer in charge of a tactical unit says it, he's seeing the issues. He has to face it. And while, you know, I appreciate somebody in the wrong place at the wrong time and they shouldn't have died, but if it is a firefight going on, at some point the police officers can't be like, does he have a gun? Does he have a gun? Well, someone's shooting at us, and who in their right mind, not shooting at the cops, is going to just stand up by a window or whatever, or expose themselves? Like, now, it can happen, because you're disoriented, you don't know what's going on. But to the police, to have to go through the 20 questions and to try to see, go through a checklist, that's not reasonable in a fight, right? Think about if you've ever been in a fist fight. Gunfight is just more range. Psychologically speaking, the stress, the need to make snap decisions, and unfortunately, you're not always going to have good outcomes. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a outright bad decision.
And sometimes people of the opinion, persons of the opinion, that the body cameras will show you every single incident, the entire incident as it unfolds. It is not so.
And also, a lot of times with body cameras, this is one of the pitfalls. You're viewing it with hindsight. So, you're not in the situation.
But what I'm saying, there is need for the body cameras, especially in our situations right now, where we have a number of police-involved shootings.
Yes.
Not that the police just go out there, coming to work every morning and decide they're going to shoot at somebody. Yeah? So I'm not saying that. It is because of the environment that we are working in right now.
Because it's not just shootings. It could be, well, this police officer's rude to me. This police officer sexually assaulted me. And if you have the body cameras, there at least would be a chance of evidence to prove or disprove what happened.
So exactly. So the body cameras, when we look at body camera footage from other jurisdictions, post an event, you would see that they would release the body camera footage, and
that's another part. Stick a pin in that because we'll have to get to that later.
Right. So the issue of the body cameras is a very critical decision that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and Trinidad and Tobago has to make holistically. Cost is another issue by itself.
But I just want to point out, the minister's statements, unfortunately, it sounds almost prejudicial. Like, well, mess around and find out, right? But the problem is, if the public starts to think, oh, that's the modus operandi that we're working with, at some point they're going to potentially start to think, oh, the police just trigger happy.
Well,
and the thing is, having something like the body camera, because, right, the minister says something that is generally, it's not a wrong statement, but then the context of him saying it, and if it's said too much, and if that's the approach psychologically that national security takes, it's not going to, as you say, it'll be used against them politically. It's not going to be viewed favorably. So having something like the body cameras, it's like, hold on. Let's not let perception and speculation run rampant. Let's get actual physical evidence of what happened that is unbiased because it's a recording, right?
And we see footage from private CCTV cameras where the brazenness of the individuals, how aggressive some of them behave. Just run into your house, do that, attack you on the streets, even in business places. They will run into the business places and try to rob persons and brandishing firearms in our ground. That is one side of it, right? The only problem is that the only problem I continue to say is that because we don't have sufficient body cameras. That is one aspect of it, which is critical, as well as the body cameras that we do have.
Right. Do you know when they were purchased? Because some basic research did suggest to me that the concerns about things like low battery life and stuff was a concern for body camera systems about 7 or so years ago. So and if they were purchased a while ago, it might actually be practical when they say, well, we do have these issues. So I'm not too sure if you would know, because the technology improves over time.
It's about in 2024, I should say, probably around
25.
25. I would say give or take almost close to 9-10 years. 9-10 years.
Yeah.
No, yeah, around those things. No.
So potentially those cameras might be
they could
relatively obsolete.
The current, exactly, the current, now, when you look at body cameras, there's a lot of factors that we need to consider with the body cameras.
Yes.
Usage, accessibility, how it is affects to the person, versatility, into the rigidity, how rigid it is, if it can withstand.
If it's in a confrontation.
If it can withstand, if it fall, it can withstand. Then the battery life of the is very important, because if we are actually utilizing the body cameras how it was designed, it means that as soon as an officer goes on patrol, the camera starts to record. The battery life might be a minimum or maximum, in some cases about an 8 hours life.
Yes.
After 8 hours of continuous recording, here's the challenge you're going to face. Let's be practical. You and I have 2 patrols to work. Good? So I would patrol for my first period. Let's say my first period is 4 to 8 hours. 4 hours, as the case may be. And while I am patrolling, my body camera is on for a continuous period for that entire...
Because you don't know when something would happen.
Right, so I have on my camera right through, and I'm recording everything that is dealing with it.
And also, if the rule is turn it on when you're responding to something specific, when you leave things subjective like that, it's not that the police will turn it on only when it suits them, it's that the public first will think that happens. Exactly. So by having it running right through, then there's no doubt.
All right, so we go through the entire 4 hours. Good?
Yeah.
We go back to the station, there's a changeover, I hand over that same one, I have to bring it back in, account for it, put it in, log it in, and now you take that same body camera and you go out for another period.
Well, I don't know if the system should be that way.
That is what existed. Currently existed because of the unavailability of individuals having a body camera personally to them.
Yes.
So
and the battery life as well, I would imagine.
So then you go out. Let's say, for instance, at the end of your 4, or coming close to your 4, so we already reached the 8 hours, you end up in a situation like it normally happens within the organization, that you have to go way beyond, or you're on some additional exercise. That same body camera needs to be going on.
If you're a police officer and there's an armed robbery right in front of you, but you're at 8 hours and 31 seconds and your body camera is out of power, you can't not respond.
So I am just using this as an example why body cameras, the battery life is important, as well as to have sufficient body cameras. I'm not giving, just remember.
There's another one, storage.
Good.
Because some cameras can apparently work wirelessly and live stream their cameras to whatever server is holding it. Not all. So it's the battery life as well as the storage. How much? Because if it could store 8 hours of footage, that's fine. If it can't, you have another thing that will more or less give you the same problem.
So I'm not making any excuses why the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service an officer is not using body cameras. This is an example of one of the factors need to be considered in purchasing body cameras and appropriate amounts of numbers of body cameras, because you do not know which police officer or which unit will be involved in an incident of this nature, because when you have officers out there on patrol and they are responding, it is not the unit with the body camera alone will respond. It's all the units that are available that will respond.
And one of the few things we've seen now that the murder rate is down, we're seeing somewhat better response times to other crimes.
Yes.
But that's not always a special unit that's going to be dispatched from central headquarters. It's the guys on patrol that's going to intercept these things first.
And so that is why it is important for persons to understand, and that is why I believe body cameras are such a topic of importance, because it not only provides a level of transparency for the incident by providing evidence in the event that we have to go before the courts, but just for level of transparency and trust and confidence in the organization and the public building that trust that, listen, the officers didn't do certain things.
Now, based on what you know, do we have extensive storage and infrastructure facilities for the pre-existing body cameras?
There is current storage facility, but again, the more you start to record, it means that you have more data to store. So then the storage capacity.
And it's supposed to be high quality video, right?
Exactly.
We don't want something where you're right in front of me and we can't make out your face.
No,
a judge will basically throw it out, not so?
It makes no sense. So then when you look at the cost associated with the number of body cams, I think it's 8,000 or something like that.
So the contract, and this is what is not totally clear, so we are working a little bit on assumption, and if the Commissioner or the Minister of Homeland Security wants to correct the assumptions, that's fine. But the contract was for $24.9 million, of which 3,000 body camera units are part of the contract. It is not clear because usually the contract is not just the camera unit alone. It would also be all of the various other things that has to go into the whole system. Charging ports, cables or whatever infrastructure to transfer the data, right?
That's about $8,000 per camera?
Right? Storage, yeah, so it's about $8,000 a camera, right? And that is the reason that the Commissioner gave after the Minister had to inform, I believe it was a question in Parliament. First of all, they asked him about the 5,000 cameras, because I do believe initially that's what was reported. They're going to get 5,000 cameras. Then the Minister said, no, it's 3,000, we had to cancel it. Then the Commissioner had to give us the actual reasoning why. The reason he gave was he can't agree with an $8,000 price tag per camera when elsewhere it's for $2,500 or $3,000. Here's the problem with that. If you look at the purchase history of body cameras, historically speaking, like this is an old example, but back in 2016, Los Angeles bought 7,000 cameras. The contract cost $57.6 million US. US. Now, I believe it's US because it's Los Angeles. They ain't quoting TT, right?
Exactly.
Now, only $4 million US was for the cameras, right? 7%. It was $570 per camera if we just go for the price per camera. But the contract was $57.6 million because of replacement equipment and digital storage of the recording. So I believe they're not going to have enough cameras for everybody, and when one breaks, we down a camera, right? They probably have spare parts and a whole host of other physical parts to the system, but then also the digital storage, because the more cameras you have, 8 hours a day, however many days, well, that's 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, essentially. Most of these cameras should be, or every officer out there should be bringing in that amount of data, right? Yes. And you can't be like, well, delete last month's data. You can't do that. You have to, first of all, whatever is evidence has to be kept in near perpetuity. And then even the mundane stuff, because you never know, has to be kept.
Exactly. So when you look at it, it's uninformed perspectives of individuals when you just give me a value of $25 million for body cameras.
Without breaking it down.
Without understanding that it's not the physical camera alone. There is other things that going on, going behind the line, where data is important and your storage and all of that.
Spare batteries, a whole lot of stuff.
There's a lot of other things that because even the cameras have accessories attached to it, right? So there will always be some additional cost, or I should say cost, that is associated with this entire thing, not the physical cameras alone. Because if you go, because a lot of persons went online and they look at the price and they come back and say, well, this is the camera, how much it costing? Yes, you can get body cameras anywhere, but you need body cameras based on certain features that is used by law enforcement.
High enough quality. And then here's the thing, for police operations, right? Yes, for patrolmen, maybe you just get cameras that it'll store the data. But say you have a special unit doing a major raid, right? And it's being run at the executive level or overseen. You could have cameras that live stream. So then, you know,
depend on the circumstances.
Yeah, the support staff could see things in real time. They don't just have to wait on a report in the radio. Like, oh my gosh, somebody got shot. Let's move these ambulances in place. Let's move. You know what I mean? Like, as well as you're seeing things in real time, you have a better grasp of the situation, and well, that's just one aspect of it, right? So that's the thing. The commissioner didn't make it clear. So like I said, if they want to come and say, no, this is the breakdown. Because first of all, is the $8,000 for a high quality camera? Is the $2,500 for a low quality camera? He didn't necessarily explain that.
No.
How much the storage costs, how much accessories you get in, how much spare batteries, link cables, whatever.
But we have to be, I am saying that that might be important. That might be important, but not necessarily. So I am simply...
Well, but the thing is, for him to explain, to break down the price further.
But still, I don't see the need, this is just me, that it is important at this point in time. What I'm simply saying is
only because the justification was the price tag.
And that is,
so you need to show that the capabilities of one is not in line with the capabilities of a per dollar price.
But let's be fair. Let's be fair to this commissioner.
Okay.
I want to be fair to this commissioner. He did not know what was discussed. He may not have known what was discussed. Right? Hold on.
My problem with that is he is the one coming up to speak on the issue.
Because he is the commissioner at this point in
time.
Right,
but so then he can't speak in ignorance.
Hold on. I'm not saying he's speaking in ignorance.
He doesn't have to be there for the conversation.
I'm not saying he's speaking in ignorance. I am saying he may not have been there or may not have been privy to the discussions as to the type of other accessories that may have been. Because I'm just speculating. In the quotation, it might just have a bare figure.
The problem is having all of that relevant information is necessary to truly assess what the price is, because you have to assess. Because then you could have said, well, it doesn't have to be for 8,000; it could be for 7,000. So
let us be fair.
No, that's the thing. That's why I said we're operating under a set of assumptions, right? And if they're wrong, feel free to correct me.
Exactly.
I don't mind being wrong.
So I am saying, and I will leave it up to the commissioner at this point in time, that these are some of the concerns that the public is bringing to the attention.
Because here's the thing. This is my ultimate point. $25 million, 24.9, right? Now, I think 3,000 body cameras is not enough. It probably should be double, right?
Be more, yes.
So let's go with 50 million. If with 50, because we double it, right? 50 million. To me, I don't mind the police service, assuming this is fit for purpose, right? Yes. This is what the price should be, right? And again, this is why I want a breakdown, right? I don't mind $50 million because this is to safeguard the integrity and the trust and confidence in the service and every officer. This is to safeguard them from false accusations, safeguard them from unfair public perception, right? And the price tag on that, the implication on that, because again, I'm operating under a set of assumptions. It just doesn't look good to me when the minister said body armor over body cameras, and then that's essentially how things unfolded. They got, reportedly, they didn't go into details, they got their body armor, at least to the point where they're happy enough to say, well, we got the body armor. But we're going to cancel the body cameras. And it just makes it look as though the minister, and I'm not saying this is what happened. I am not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying it looks as though the minister got his way. He didn't want the body cameras, he wanted the body armor. And then now when you come, and this is how the public can perceive it, when you combine that with the statements of, well, mess around and get shot, right? It just, he puts forward, what probably unintentionally, a persona that is not helpful when it comes to trust and confidence, right?
I will take that for our discussions, all right? Because it does in fact comes across that way, but
because you know how people are.
Yes.
You know how people are. So they want to think as though they found the secret, so they will speculate and connect dots.
But being fair to this commissioner, based on everything that we have heard from him since he took office, and how he treats with situations, he probably would have a reason why he decided to discard this initial transaction, right? But I do not think that body cameras is off the table. It is a critical part of...
My practical fear is they're going to restart the exercise and potentially come right back to the same point that they were at. And what was deemed unacceptable will then have to be acceptable. Or, and again, this is assuming that our read on it is correct. Not when I say our, I don't necessarily mean Ashraf's, I mean myself and other people who think the same along the lines that I think, that they will get a cheaper system that might not be good enough. And then they will say, well, the system has deficiencies, and we won't know for certain if the deficiencies are what was bought or deficiencies inherent to generally body cameras on a whole.
Well, I would say that when you look at some of the information online, there may be more cost-effective models, right? That can provide the necessary requirements that is needed by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Yeah, there might be.
Right?
Might be.
So exploring that options in an already financially constricted environment at this point in time. But I agree with you. I will agree with you with this, that the dollar value for building trust and confidence in the organization and the man in Trinidad and Tobago, where we have police-involved shootings, where we believe that they are always, or the police always have something to hide, will change on the narrative, or should provide some level of transparency going forward. So I am hopeful that even in this budget, this new budget, that allocations or consideration should be made within the budgetary allocation, that this should become part of the consideration going forward.
Yeah, because, okay, here's another example. Houston Police Department, they bought 4,100 cameras. So it's around the range of what we, more closer to what we were looking at.
Yeah.
3.4 million for the equipment, and expected 8 million over 5 years to buy servers and other equipment to store video. Because that's the other thing. We don't know, one of these things would break down is how much of that was for storage, because you have basically two prices, the initial purchase and then what is the expected price to increase the storage, because theoretically you will never stop increasing the storage. You don't want to delete things after a few months. You might probably want to have to keep things for a few years. You might need a few years worth of storage.
But then you will have to put in certain type of procedure and protocol, because certain things cannot be kept inevitably, because of the fact that once you put in legal procedures, that after a certain period of time, information could properly be
You probably
discarded.
might need to just literally put it in a law, so that then you won't have a challenge. Why was it deleted? This evidence could have cleared me, blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
blah. Well, but here's the other thing. My initial speculation before the commissioner spoke, and even now I'm still wondering, right, is he running cover for somebody, is that the decision might not have even been the Minister Alexander, right? Because you would think it's a budget thing, it might have come from him, right? Because he answered the question initially. Then the commissioner said it, okay, maybe it came from him. But it's a budget thing, that could mean that it doesn't have to come from them. It could come from the people controlling money, right? And then what my initial reaction was, that's a dumb thing to do, thinking that it was a government decision to pinch pennies at a time when they have shown that they're pinching pennies.
However, as we're on the speculating, we're just throwing out speculations, people, we're just throwing out speculations or theories, I should say, right? Maybe the initial discussions wasn't as sound as we think it would have been.
That could be true too.
Right?
There is a world where the contract wasn't good enough.
And there were certain things that were missing, and that's why it was not settled in the way it was supposed to be settled.
See, this is why transparency is a thing where you need to speak up front and more, be forthcoming with information, because one of my issues with this is not that they cancel the contract, it's that the opposition had to ask, and then the Minister of Homeland Security said, well, we cancel it. And then the next day, the commissioner had to give a response to the minister's response, right? So we are reacting 2 steps down, as opposed to being upfront and saying, well, when it happened, so that it can't be used against you by your political opponents. We had to do this because of this.
Sean, I don't think anything that the present administration says, right, would be satisfactory to the opposition.
But but to the rest of us.
So
think about it. When you basically do something and you say nothing about, because this is what governments do, and you say nothing about it, and then it comes out after the fact when there's a reason that compels them, they have to respond. So how does that look to the public?
I agree. It does not look good. So let's say post-election, I'm sorry, post the budget presentation.
Yes.
Let's see what is the possible allocations for. Remember, it is not the Ministry of National Security anymore.
Yes,
it is divided.
So now we'll know essentially what's going to police and prisons and what's going to the military.
And then I will leave this question open-ended for the while, leave it hanging, right, for the commissioner. And I hope my commissioner is listening, that discussions along the body cameras and what is necessary going forward, that he will present to the population what is his projection and what he intends to go with respect to body cameras. Because at the end of the day, I think body cameras, whether we say whatever value we put against it, body cameras in our current environment, where cell phones are used as body cameras right now, literally being as a recording device. There's not a level. There's always a level of transparency, and always a question as to the actions of law enforcement, whether they are legal or illegal.
Well, that's the other thing, and I've brought this up with you before. Well, first of all, I want to say, I think it's a good point to wait for the budget, because it seems like in other areas, financially, a lot of things have been put on hold, not just potentially national security stuff, like a lot of areas have been put on hold, waiting to the next budget, and that's probably in part due to the kind of deficit that the last budget was operating under. And I know, I guess we haven't necessarily, I think they did take some loans, but it might not have been to the extent that the former PNM administration did in the last couple of years. But with regards to body camera usage, then there's another issue. Because you said it, you mentioned it, and I said stick a pin in it, when other jurisdictions would release the footage. But we don't necessarily, now, at least in theory, when things go to trial, it will be evidence that the court could see. So one would hope at least the defense attorneys, if it's a civilian accused of a crime, or the lawyer's attorneys, in case the police is accused of something, whether rightfully or wrongfully, you would have evidence as to what happened. But for the public side of the equation, to what extent can the police consider releasing footage?
So sometimes it is not about who's right, who's wrong. It's transparency of an interaction.
Right.
So you would leave it to the public to make their own opinion, some positive, some negative, at the case, how they view their opinion. But without any footage, it is speculation.
Yes.
Let's put aside the body camera footage at this point in time. We have national CCTV cameras. How many national CCTV, not private citizens cameras, or how much national CCTV footage have been presented to the public when incidents takes place that we put out? What we normally get is on social media, where we have private cameras, persons record their cameras, and they post it up. You will get one view, right? One view or one perspective, because
it's dependent on what they upload.
Exactly.
They might have edited it, or they might not have caught everything.
So when you look at it, so we have multiple, you're supposed to have multiple means of capturing footage for incidents. Body cameras is one because it gives you a personal perspective.
But also, in theory, you would have multiple body cameras in any interaction.
Exactly.
So that gives you already multiple.
And that is why body cameras gives different views from persons, because different police officers views from different angles and different positions.
You could pick up audio, some might pick up
so you will get, so one body camera footage may not capture the whole incident. It may capture one particular part of the incident because that is perspective of the body camera from the officer. But other body cameras that other officers have, you will get other areas. This gives a level of transparency, but you can see multiple.
If you release the
so that is the purpose of multiple that more officers having body cameras, and not one officer or two officers on an incident, because sometimes you don't really get you may not get the full understanding of what takes place.
In fact, one of the things we should also consider is dash cams for police vehicles.
That
also gives you another.
That is another consideration. But we need to understand that it is not always about an incident or a fatal incident. It could just simply be an incident where you provide information to the public. This is what the officers engage in the body cameras, and let the public understand that, listen, this is a body camera footage. So I am interacting with the public, and you have body camera footage. Let the public understand how the body camera records, for them to understand also. Because
if you have a situation where someone says a police officer was rude, you would have footage like for the whole interaction, to all of the lead up.
You may not have the officer's face, but you will have his voice, and you will have the body camera that recorded.
It's supposed to be assigned to him.
And it is assigned to an individual. So if the public say, I don't know who the officer there, I had a record, that is something different.
Yeah, well,
right?
If you record, you record.
You could record.
Yeah.
But if you are recording, I am recording from a legitimate perspective. I am not using my personal phone to do the recording, because to otherwise it makes no sense. I'm using the device that is given to me.
That's the other thing. A body camera, part of the whole system is also to ensure chain of evidence, right?
Exactly.
There's no interference. You can't delete the first 5 minutes on nonsense like that.
So sometimes I'm saying that we shouldn't wait to when an incident that is our public interest comes to the forefront. Simple interactions with the public by the use of body cameras should be placed, or the public should get to understand it. Let the public at this point in time feel and see the interaction, because it is a different ballgame altogether when you are recording somebody, and I'm telling you that, sir, please be informed that you have been recorded by my body camera. That person starts to change in their manner. Sometimes they become more aggressive, or sometimes they pacify themselves.
Here is a parallel observation, right? So it's not about cameras. Customer service, right?
Yeah.
It don't matter who the customer service person is. It don't matter what they look like. Trust me on this one, right? Because I've been on both sides of this equation. Customer service person, this is the policy. I'm sorry, we can't give you what you're requesting for, because, and you don't necessarily, because just like with the police, there's certain things you don't reveal to the public because it's complex. And the point is, the long and short is, well, we do these things because all you don't behave, right? Like, to some extent, businesses have the same thing. They will have certain rules where, because some members of the public want to take advantage, you have to put things in case of safeguard against that. But you don't want to tell people that, because then they feel you're accusing them of something, right? So anyway, right, that's why the cameras in a store is not because they think you are criminals, because criminals might happen, and they have to account for everybody. So you tell the person the policy, and they kick it up a fuss, and they want to complain, and they want to speak to the manager, and they don't want to accept it, right, because they're not getting their way. And as soon as someone that has the status of manager comes and says the exact same thing, they boil down. They calm down one time. It's almost like if, oh my gosh, you just explained the revelation from literally the Bible to me, and I am now imparting with greater knowledge and peace in the world, right? And it's literally the same thing that was said, to the point where I know people are like, I don't want to talk, managers, I don't want to talk to the people, because I'm literally only going to repeat exactly what you told them. And I have been on both sides of that.
And
I have been on both. I have been the, sir, ma'am, only to find out, well, they just didn't want to accept it from the customer service person at the time.
And you know what is very important, a very important part of this body camera also, is that we keep speaking about the unprofessional conduct of police officers.
Yes.
And we have been embarrassed in this organization and Trinidad and Tobago, so not the police service alone, holistically Trinidad and Tobago, because they say that the way police officers in Trinidad behave, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
So body cameras, when an officer has on a body camera, and it shouldn't be only for police officers. There are a lot of other persons in other areas could use body cameras, port police officers,
yeah, right, exactly.
Immigration officers if they,
yes.
if they need, immigration, sometimes airport authority.
Airport authority. You can maybe even argue customs. If I have a body camera footage of now we're going into the container,
so,
you know what I mean?
So there's a lot of opportunities or perspectives in which you can use. But when we're discussing the issue with the interaction with the public, with police officers, a police officer who has on a body camera,
yes.
First things, he needs to be professional.
Well, yes, it was hard to figure out a way to say that without it sounding bad, but essentially, it's not just the public that now understand they're being recorded.
Exactly.
The police are being recorded.
So that's
too.
what I'm saying. So,
yes.
so he or she has to be professional. He or she has to have knowledge of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago and don't be arrogant when he's explaining certain aspects of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago to the individual.
We have a caller, but I'll just say this. There are videos on YouTube where people essentially assess police officers, right? They are being recorded, right? And the interactions, they get exposed, right? Because it's not all these videos about a bad police officer. No. The people doing the videos will also say, but this officer did well. They were professional. They articulated the law. They knew the law. They treated the person correctly, whether the person was breaking the law or not. Right? They diffuse a situation, they de-escalate, and so on and so on. So it works both ways. It could be to the benefit.
Exactly. And I know we have a caller. Caller, just hold 1 second as I make this point, please. The issue here is that it is not one-sided. I always say that it should not be one-sided. It gives transparency on both sides, right? And more so, I think the police organization, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, needs much more transparency at this point in time, so it will benefit the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service much more in this circumstance going forward. Then eventually, the public will understand.
Because I also think it'll help understand what actually goes on when shooting starts.
Yes, not shooting alone, interactions.
But that too.
Interaction, not shooting, interactions with police officers.
We have Digger Martin in line. Good morning, caller, on here. Caller?
Hello?
Yeah. Digger Martin?
Good morning. Sure.
Morning.
And good morning, sir.
Morning.
ASP Ashraf Ali. I am going to pick up the TTPS this morning, but before I pick them up, I have to throw some punches. One of the weaknesses of the TTPS is the lack in confidence by citizens like myself. Body camera is one of the tools that could bring back some sort of confidence in the police service. And I'm going to draw to an incident happened about 2 years in Diego Martin, where the police went in search of alleged criminal, and he was shot in the raid. And the then commissioner, a policeman was shot in the raid. And the police there did not, the rest of the police did not come out and say what actually happened. The police commissioner had to eat his word. And I think that is Jacob. He went down there and said, no stone will unturned until the investigation. I think it took about 3 or 4 or 5 days.
Yes.
If it had body cameras at that point in time, it would have been speed and execution. You investigate it quickly and you come up with a resolution. And that is what we need in the police service now. I have confidence in the current commissioner of police. And I benchmarking with the last 4 police commissioners, from Stephen Williams, Gigi, Hula, and Jacob. And from my vantage, he is way above in terms of strategic actions and result, rapid response. Look at this major drug haul, 314. Jog back your memory to the Monos Island is half the value. But that trial for the Monos Island, the judge who had oversight in that trial indicated and was skating with respect to the police investigation. She said that it was not properly done. She was skating on that. And I'm hoping that we have a major improvement with this big haul. And everybody who was part of that, and I'm hoping that we are getting closer and closer to Mr. Big, so it must be thoroughly investigated. The fact that the TTPS aborted the procurement of body cameras tells me that it is similar to the actions of the previous government. Did not implement procurement processes in all state organizations properly. It's not a difficult thing. It was a poor procurement. The fact that you tell me now the cost was inflated tells me that the process was flawed. I go and have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. Well, I would say this. I don't know if normal procurement methods should be used for military and paramilitary procurement. That has its own levels of complexity, but probably it needs to be improved.
So we got another perspective from this caller as to these.
That's why I said it might not have been the commissioner's decision or even the minister's decision. That's why I said that.
And I want to say that yes, this commissioner has shown some positives at this point in time. It's very early. But I think it's...
Mr. Rigman, and I want to take a break. The thing is, the body cameras, you need to have them as well as sufficient measures to enforce them always being worn. It won't eliminate all potential opportunities for shenanigans, but it would, while on duty, eliminate unnecessary speculation from the public, right? And that's the goal. So one of the things with this is, it's one thing, you gotta get the cameras, you gotta get storage, right? You have to have all of the procedures and laws in place, and then you have to ensure that you could compel officers. This is a must, because I was very disappointed whenever I heard messaging of, we want to encourage officers to wear their body cameras. And I'm just like, what? Yeah, are you not a executive member of the TTPS, part of the executive leadership, and you're encouraging? It's almost like if it's an option, then it undermines the whole point to protect the officers. All right. There's more to say, but let's take a break. When we come back, I have a comment to get to as well as to continue this conversation. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Something very important, there is an intrinsic neurotrophic factor that is released through myokines, that is some peptides that we have in our muscle that produce neuromodulation and increase that peptide in the brain to increase the neurocognitive of the brain.
I'm glad you said that. Right. So exercise has an important part to play in the aging brain. As we get older, our gray matter does shrink. We have reduction of synapses, but exercise is shown to actually improve our cognitive functioning.
Totally.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk, more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems, and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated.
A lot of people don't know that there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
I'm back on talking about WSN. We have our next caller, Safan, on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Safan, are you with us?
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Mr. Ali.
Morning, sir.
Let me ask this first question, Mr. Ali. Body-worn cameras in the police service. Can the footage captured on body-worn cameras be tendered as evidence
Yes.
in criminal matters?
Yes, it can. Caller?
Yes, Mr. Ali, I didn't hear you.
Yes, it can be tendered as evidence. It is part of evidence.
Okay, so it can be tendered as evidence.
Yes.
Okay. I want to refer to an Express article on the 8th of September this year, which delved into this issue of the cancellation of the contract for the body-worn cameras. And it would have preceded this government, this present government, because if the article is correct, based on correspondence between the attorneys for Diamond Systems and the attorney for the police service, Diamond was seeking payment, which is a 70% payment according to the contract, since February of this year.
Right.
So it seems as if that money could not have been paid, and Diamond was threatening legal action since then on a couple of occasions. So it would appear as if there seemed to be some issue with respect to payment or a reversal of the decision to purchase these cameras. Because, and my problem now is that, okay, the contract has been cancelled. Now, Diamond Systems they're going to sue the government, and there's going to be a cost to the Treasury, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, for not ordering these cameras, for not executing the contract for these cameras. And now they're going to go back out to tender, so it's going to cost us again. Just what Sean said, he's afraid that we're going to end up in the same place. We're going to end up in the same place at where we are now. And this is some of the problems that I have. So Mr. Guevara seems to have inherited a situation that with these body-worn cameras, and I just can't understand what is happening in terms of, because this seems to be a situation beyond Mr. Guevara, because this is about the finance and who did not want to pay, and again, the population going to get the wrong end of the stick, because it's going to cost us in the end, in more than one way, because the camera's not here, right? The cameras have not been brought in, so there are less cameras in the police service, so the police service not as efficient as it can be, and then it's going to have a legal cost when Diamond goes to court, because based on all the quotations that they have for letters going back and forth between Diamond's attorneys and the police service attorneys, this is going to cost the nation. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller. And that's the thing. First of all, in the article, the commissioner could not be reached for comment on the issue, right? So again, it goes back to, and this is where it would be better if he could be more proactive, right, on issues. But if it was the case where it wasn't his decision, I could see where that's one of the things that he doesn't want to, because him being proactive, it kind of puts him in line for the first and the most blame. And if it's not his decision, I could understand him not wanting to do that. Of course, we're speculating that it's not his decision. But it does make sense with regards to how the nation's finances has been going.
But
right?
I think if I'm not mistaken, if I may have read it wrong in that said article, is that there's still windows for discussions, because I understand that the organization, the lawyers are still discussing.
The problem is, a senior officer basically said the contract will go back out for tender, and I believe that's where we reached based on what was recently said, right? Because the deal, I think they basically said, please be informed that we have received instructions not to proceed with these matters. This is, I believe, police legal, or whoever is representing police in this case. Yes, head of legal services to DSSL's director. We have been informed not to proceed with these matters in the circumstances our client is not inclined to pay the requisite sums demanded. And I guess now, in a lawsuit, it would depend on to what extent did DSSL have to invest in order to
so yes, it make
provide for this
and that is why it is very it would have.
If DSSL has spent nothing, if it was just all paperwork, then I don't know how much they could sue the state for. But if they already invested in stock and the like.
That is why, based on our discussions, and that the procurement processes for specific type of organizations, the discussions on equipment fit for purpose is very relevant, because it's not just that we're just buying cameras, body cameras, just so it's body cameras that is fit for purpose for the organization. So there may be additional cost attached to it, maybe certain specs that they need to put together, and certain things that the suppliers have to put together. So it is not just and I agree, it is not just by saying that, okay, we're going to spend this amount of money on it and everything is okay, and then now we say everything cancel and we need to get more money to go back again. It is not a good situation that we found ourselves in. Trinidad and Tobago and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, because at the end of the day, like the last caller, we are still short of body cameras. The transparency that you're trying to put forward with respect to interactions with the law enforcement is still lacking, right? So, like when you said in your conversation earlier, what is the dollar value that we are going to put on it? Sometimes transparency and integrity doesn't have a dollar value. We have to invest into it to get the desired outcome. And like I said, I am hopeful in this budget presentation that there is going to be a consideration for body cameras, and I am hopeful that probably by the earliest possible time we can get more body cameras into the organization, because it is a critical part of the policing at this point in time.
So funny enough, you can't necessarily find a price for the model that Express article outlined to say that this is what the contract was for. Because now apparently it had 12 hours of either battery life or hard drive space, 4K resolution, but it can't give a price. Like when you look at
who's you checking? You ask your friend? Did you ask your friend?
No, I'm checking up various.
Did you ask your friend?
I'm checking up various websites on the cameras themselves, right?
So we asked our friend, right? Google friend?
Well, I'm Googling, yes, but I'm looking at.
And that is why I'm saying that you ask your friend. Know why? The same way that you will go through that.
Yes.
The public
will go through that.
And that is why they can now come up with a narrative and say, well, look what we are saying here, but you're only seeing one aspect of it because you're going to see that price.
Yeah, because, well, this is the thing. Because if there was like a general price, like that they would say, Because it can't even tell me that normally for law enforcement purposes, right? You could buy cameras off of Amazon,
Yes.
but that I don't think is a relevant price, right? Because you're missing a lot. Because this thing is talking about, I believe part of the reasons why is when you're buying it for a law enforcement agency, you have to consider things like storage, spare batteries, and all of the other things that go into it, right? So, and they're basically saying, yeah, this is not a thing you could just quote. So, to what extent now that 2,500 to 3,000 figure, it could be a quote, but then now, is it a reasonable quote? Is it somebody undercutting the price, giving us subpar stuff to try to get a contract? We don't know.
We really don't know.
Right? But I think the genesis of this probably might not actually be about the price, but rather somebody in government saying, we don't have the funds for that right now. The PNM didn't do it. It was technically awarded under them, right, with their commissioner. They didn't do it. We don't have the money for that right now, so you got to figure it out. And the commissioner is basically left with the, well, we can't buy it, right? Regardless of if it's the right thing to do. He might have been forced in that position, I hate to say.
Then, I mean, we don't want to throw this topic out, but then we talk about priority. Which priority you're going to set in the organization?
I already said for the budget, and by extension, you could have assumed this and you would have been correct. I have no issue prioritizing both body armor and body cameras. I would have taken an issue if you only did one, right? But to me, the body cameras, not every police officer, and this might be because I am not an officer, right? So officers are not going to like this. But to me, if you want to kind of do it by the numbers, you might have protected more police officers with cameras than with body armor. But I know that's really bad. That's why I say that's why I say it's a by the numbers thing. It's not an actual practical thing, right? But the long and short is that's why I think my initial thing was why choose one?
So then
both.
Then here's the other aspect of it. Bulletproof vests or body armor, as we discussing, is personal protection.
Yes.
Body cameras is the tools of the trade. It's the difference.
But it's also personal protection.
No, it is not.
Well, okay,
it
yes,
is not.
in that. No, but again, that's why I said, why frame it that it was an either-or situation? I guess that was the thing with Minister Alexander.
I think the reason, this is my my perspective, right? I think the reason because of the fact that body armors, bulletproof vests, are more intimate. It provides a level of security for the officers themselves. Now, number of the bulletproof vests have expired, have outlived its period. And I'm not saying that it's not good still. It might be physically looking good.
Right, but it's not necessarily going to hold up.
When it may not hold up in that it's supposed to. It is a higher risk. So it is better to protect the mass in this first instance. And then we could discuss the other aspects.
I understand that. Let's try to put it this way. I was thinking more academically, if you just on paper, right? Okay, a couple of things. One, cameras could also help reveal how these fights actually goes. The long and short, I was telling Ali, there was an incident that was recorded by body cameras where tasers didn't put the man down. He kept fighting. And it caused the situation to have to be escalated. And at the end of the day, when you saw the whole scenario, you had a better appreciation of what happens when police get into a confrontation with someone that wants to fight back. And can we just put the comments up real quick and we close with the comments? Venezuela is now a major potential war. It's now in a major potential war. No, there's potential for a conflict, but there's no such thing as being in a major potential war, right? Potential means it hasn't happened yet. With the US, being overly sides with the US, well, no, the PM technically, this is the thing, this is the long and short, right? The PM openly sides with the US. Yes, but in what basis? Because she has said, we ain't for regime change. Now, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, because the gung-ho attitude that she's had has not come across well. And I think similarly, because let's not forget, people wanted the police to be more harsher, tougher on crime. But now we've seen now in an extreme international way, gung-ho talk, hey, we don't like that. And some people are pushing back when the minister says something a little too cavalier, when the commissioner is wearing the Punisher symbol, which I don't have a problem with, but I understand why people would, right? And maybe we should consider what is the message we're putting out there. The whole MTD clip, shoot people, shoot suspected criminals even if they identify themselves as police officers first and face the courts rather than end up dead. Things like that are not always helpful. There has to be a limit to the bravado when you're trying to look as though you're confident and cool to the public. Because we have to be responsible. People could die over these statements, and they probably already have. Do we know for sure if those 2 people that were killed, maybe they thought it's fake police looking to kill them, so they shot first? We don't know. We don't know.
Possibility.
There's a possibility. I won't say that it is true, but we will never know. All right, thanks to the callers, thanks for the comment, thanks to acting ASP retired, soon to be retired, Ashraf Ali.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the conversation. Folks, 10 questions is up next with Andy Johnson. Until next week, be well, stay safe. Remember your allegiance to this republic and to all of its citizens, even if you are different political and racial areas in our country, we should still be nice to each other. Please, because we don't want to see what's going on in North America happen here. And it can happen here, and that's all I'll say about that. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.